My mother died from a horrible airplane accident. Now I'm being forced to stay with my deadbeat father, who's borderline an alcoholic. I ignore the call. I knew who was calling, and the fact that he had called 20 times in the last hour did not change my decision and ignore him one bit. There was only one thing that he's been interested in all his life, and now because he doesn't have it, he's come crying to me. I'm talking, of course, about my dad, the man I despise the most in this world. My name's Barbara Stickler, and I'm 27 years old. I've hated my dad for as long as I can remember. He's been a bad parent for me all my life. He might have been a bit better when Mom was still alive, but I might be wrong. I might not have noticed it that much, what with Mom doing everything in her power to parent me well. The story starts when I was around 5. That was the time my dad last held a stable job and supported his family like a man. After that, Mom started working more and more, and I hardly ever got to see her during the week. The weekends were great, but she explained to me that she needed to go out and earn to put the food on the table. Because since my dad got fired from his job, she was the sole bread earner with 2 dependents. You'd think that with my mom working and my dad transitioning into the role of stay-at-home parent, he might have gotten some actually parenting done. Nope. He was out more than he was at home, and several times I had to have a teacher call and remind him that I needed to be picked up from school. He and Mom would often get into fights because he forgot to feed me and made sure that I did my homework and clean clothes to wear. He was more interested in hanging out with his loser buddies who were just like him. Idiots, degenerates, who could not hold down a job and who spent the entire day drinking away the money that someone else brought in. I'm sure my mom considered getting a divorce, but our financial situation wasn't ever good enough to survive a splitting of assets. She did her best to parent me, showing up for the most part to all the important school events and instilling in me good values and morals. I had resigned myself to live with Mom taking care of both me and my dad, when one day, the unthinkable happened. I had just turned 12, and shortly after my birthday, my mom had been forced to leave for a work trip. She'd flown to another state to attend a conference, and on the way back, her plane hit a rough patch of turbulence and crashed into the ocean. They never found her remains. But 2 weeks of rigorous searching later, she was declared dead. I was beside myself with grief, and the uncertainty of the future bogged me down. I don't know what would have happened to me without my mom. My dad was more devastated about losing the money she brought in than losing his own wife. But that was to be expected. In a nutshell, after the funeral, we were almost broke. Dad was forced to look for another job, but he always came up empty. He was a deadbeat who always blamed others for his problems and never stuck in one place for too long without getting fired. Our finances were in dire straits, and that's when my maternal grandparents decided to step in. They knew all about my father and his habits, but felt bad for me and the life I had to live. They worked incredibly hard to save up money and send some over every single month. My dad, being his usual idiot self, saw an opportunity to start leeching off my grandparents. They lived in another state, and when he assured them that I was getting everything I deserved and more with the money that they sent, they believed him. It's not like they had the means to check anyways. Hardly any of the money went towards our household expenses. For the first few years after Mom died, Dad drowned his sorrows in liquor. We hardly had enough to eat, but the pantry would always be stocked to the brim with alcohol. Afterwards, he found another vice. A mistress, who depended on him for money and who seduced him with promises of love and asked for money to bankroll her lifestyle. He told me that he was madly in love, and he did not think he would ever find love again after Mom. He spent most of his time away from home, basically leaving me to raise myself with no resources and hardly enough food. I could see the coming future from miles away. He was never going to change, and I would always be hungry and helpless with no way of escape. Realizing this, I knew I had to get on my own 2 feet. I was the only one who could pull myself out of this mess. I talked to the school counselor about my grades and studying, and what I needed to do to make it into a good college. She pointed me in the right direction, helping me to find tutors and online resources to help improve my grades, and informing me all about scholarship opportunities in my area of interest. I soon had a comprehensive study plan and goals charts for the rest of my high school years. My friends, who knew my situation, set up an anonymous GoFundMe for my expenses and helped out whenever they could additionally. I started looking for a job to save up for college. I soon managed to find 2, an early morning one at the local bakery, where I went to work before heading to school, and an afternoon one at a diner, where I worked a few hours each day. As soon as I got home, I started preparing dinner for myself and then studying in whatever time I had left. It was a pretty hectic routine, and I was tired out most days, but I made it work. The alternative was frightening to think about. All during this time, my dad only came home to get things, do some laundry, and then leave to go back to his mistress's. I was careful to keep everything hidden from him, especially the money I earned and all the food in the pantry. Least he decided to steal it all. Not that he was bothered, he would give me a measly amount every week for groceries and think that as long as I was breathing, he did not have to do a single thing else. I talked to my friends about the possibility of going to one college together, and we decided to go on a weekend trip to visit colleges across the state. We soon found a college that everyone liked, and I busied myself in writing my college essay and a grant application to get the maximum scholarship award. The last year of my high school went by like a blur. Shortly before graduating, I got a letter stating that I've gotten into my college of choice with a very good scholarship. I was ecstatic. However, I would still need to fund my dorm expenses somehow on my own. I did not want to bother to ask my grandparents for any more money, so I decided to ask my father. I asked him if he could give me some money for my expenses, and he laughed at my face and said that he did not care if I've gotten into a college, let alone Yale or anywhere. He wasn't giving me any money. He said that he had spent enough on me all these years and that I should be grateful that he had raised me as well as he had. He said that he was glad that I made the wise decision of moving out. Now the house would be empty without me in it, and his girlfriend would move in and stop paying rent on her apartment. He also told me that he should have thought of moving her in sooner. I was shocked, but of course, I was not surprised. However, I had never thought he would behave so cruelly and callously. I told myself that sometime in the future I would be sure to get my revenge on this disgusting excuse of a man. Anyways, I moved across the state for college. It was very expensive and hard, and I still needed to work part-time to take care of expenses. I had a 4-year degree in business that I was working towards. Luckily, the library's excellent resources, along with a good and sincere group of friends, made my life so much easier. I graduated with honors, and the only people I invited to the graduation ceremony were my grandparents. Now that I've succeeded in my academic plans, I wanted to reveal the truth about the last few years of my life. I told them about how my dad had squandered away all his money on his girlfriend, and how the money that they sent him to pay for my college education instead went down the drain on alcohol. They were devastated and asked me why I did not tell them sooner. Honestly, I said I did not want to upset them and cause fights between them and my dad. Later, they told me the house we lived in had been under my mom's name instead of my father's, and by all rights, with her death, it should be mine. Appalled, I told them that since the last 4 years, he's been living in it with his mother's house with that floozy, and had as good as told me that I wasn't welcome back, and it was his house now. Simmering in anger, I asked my grandparents if they had any idea where the house deed was. They said that while they did not have that, they knew a great lawyer who dealt in property disputes and could give me his number. I thanked them and started formulating my plot. I contacted the lawyer and told him that I wanted the property transferred legally to me by my name, but I did not have the actual deed. He assured me that as long as the deed was in my mother's name and there were official records of its property in the office, he could get a new deed drawn up. It took some time and a lot of emailing and visiting the city hall in the town just to get the deed drawn up, but 6 months later it was done. By this time, I'd completed a 6-month internship, well-reputed company, and had been offered a high-placed permanent job at the company, since they liked my work so much. The starting salary was great, and I was assured bonuses twice a year. 2 months later, I was sent the deed of the house, which listed my mother as the sole owner. With advice of the lawyer, I started another court proceeding submitting my mother's death certificate and asking the property to be transferred to her only offspring, aka me. The lawyer assured me that it would be a short process and I would get it soon. I focused on my job and was soon promoted to a more senior position. I also started branching out and set up a small side business. I wanted positive changes in my life, and I did that by finding and connecting with an amazing boyfriend who respected me and loved our relationship. Unlike my dad's relationship with Mom, after getting the deed transferred in my name, I waited for the perfect opportunity to take the house back from my father. I also told my grandparents to start the process of suing my dad for misuse of the money that they allocated for child support. I wanted to cripple my father in every possible way, and I wanted to do it all at once. Apparently, the universe was on my side, because soon I got the news that my dad's girlfriend had been diagnosed with liver cancer, mostly due to the years of abusing and drinking and smoking that she spent since meeting my father. Of course, my dad, being the idiot that he was, had no money saved up for hospital bills. He panicked and called me after a while, saying that he's heard I was some hotshot executive at my company, and I could surely give him some cash for his poor, sick girlfriend. I reminded Dad of how he squandered away all the money that should have gone towards my well-being and my needs. I said that he's always been selfish when it comes to me, so why should I help him out now when I'm the one with all the money? He started crying and said that he's raised me well enough, seeing as how far I've gone in life, and that he should get this payment for raising me. I told him he would not get any money from me and never to call again. After that, he tried selling the house in desperation but was soon informed by my lawyers that the house was in my name now, and there's no way he could do anything about it. I also went home and told him that I wanted him out of the house now, since it was my mom's house and he could not live there anymore. Angrily, he said that I was a terrible person and I was punishing him for how he had acted before. He said he hated me and that I could not kick him out of this house. Well, maybe this is where I'm the a-hole, but to rub salt in his wounds, I told him that my grandparents also filed a case against him, asking for 80% back of the money they sent him over the years, and to fine him for misuse and fund allocated for a minor. He was in trouble now. He had hospital bills to pay, he did not have a house to live in anymore, and he had returned all the money he's taken from my grandparents shortly. On top of that, he was in debt with some other people too, as he borrowed money from a lot of people to fund his lavish lifestyle. This man started crying. He started crying, saying that he loved me and he was so sorry that he behaved this badly in the past. He asked me to forgive him and said that I just gave him some money now, all would be better later on. He would find a job, he would repay all the debt he's incurred. Seeing him in such a desperate strait, I finally had my revenge, My selfish, deadbeat dad, who had mistaken me as a leech-off, forcefully evicted from the house. They were out on the streets now, with very little belongings and no money for treatment. Later, I found out that my dad's girlfriend passed away, leaving him all alone without anything in his life. I didn't care. Not an ounce of me even had one bit of a strain of care. Though, look toward the future. Even with such hardship, I've come out on top, and I intend to stay that way. Okay guys, let me just ask you this. Do you think OP made the right decision by taking the revenge on the father? Did OP go too far, or did OP not go far enough? I would love to hear your opinion on this topic, so drop it down in the comment section. There's another story that we're going to look at today. The name is, Customer Wants to be Called Every Hour Until Her Issue is Fixed. Okay. Guys, subscribe to the channel if you're new here, as it supports me so much, and let's check out story number 2. So, I worked at a pretty big tech company, as a help desk agent as any other help desk employee. I've had my fair share of crazy customers, like this one we'll call her Karen. We would mainly answer the phone and emails and log in tickets to our systems for handing out the issues customers would require us to solve. Each logged ticket would cause the customers to be billed the standard help desk fee, and then it would add up depending on how long it takes, parts needed, etc. Okay, on to the story. So one morning, Karen calls in and asked about a ticket she's logged like 2 hours ago. I go and check the status and see it was a pretty standard account request from one of her employees. It was already being handled by the team that creates this particular account. This account was for an outside system for which we only provide the accounts, and they have their own support for problems. Due to synchronization, after we create the account, it takes roughly 24 hours for it to be functional, and this is quite well known for the managers who usually request them to be created. I inform Karen that the account is being created right now, and she should be getting a confirmation about it soon. I also reminded her it can take up to 24 hours for it to be fully functional. As soon as I said these things, the tone of her changed immediately, and she informed me quite annoyingly that this was very urgent and it should be functioning faster. We talked for a little while longer, and I explained to her why exactly it takes this long. And finally, she seems to understand, and we end the phone call. Well, about an hour later, one of my colleagues sends me a message asking if I've talked to this lady before, and tells me she's calling again. Angry and demanding that the account should be made faster, once again they explain the same things that I did, and they end the phone call. Well, just like clockwork, about another hour later, I answer a call. It's Karen again. Even angrier and practically yelling that the account needs to be created now. I check the ticket again and see it's been completed, so the account should be working tomorrow. I tell this to Karen, and man, she is not happy. She starts to yell all sorts of things and says that this is not how we should do things. Again, I inform her that the system she needs the account for is not even ours, and this is something we simply cannot do anything about. She's not having it. She then calmly informs me that if this is how we do things, then she'll be calling us every hour to waste our time until the account's done. I can almost hear the smirk on her face as she says this. Now, even though she was being extremely rude, I did not want to be a jerk and tried to inform her that every time she calls, we're required to log in a ticket, and her company will be charged the standard help desk fee. But as I try to tell this, she just cuts me off and refused to listen, so at this point, I say, alright, call us if you want. So then she proceeds to call us every hour for the rest of her workday, and the next morning I get a few of her calls and just always repeat the same thing. Quote, account will be working within 24 hours, end quote. And each time she calls me or one of my colleagues, we log a ticket and move on. Eventually, the calls stop, presumably because the account was finally functional, and we did not answer or hear from her again. I haven't heard if she got in any trouble for it, but she must have generated quite a bill for her company over nothing. Whoa. So the overwhelming majority came up with a theory about this story. They believe this caller was supposed to create the account days ago, and now she was on a tight deadline and taking her anger out on said OP. Do you guys agree with that? Was this Karen pushing her time? Drop your comments down below. I would love to hear your opinion on this one, and let me know about that theory. That's all the stories I have for you today. Show some love for the channel, hit that like button, have a wonderful day, and remember, it's cool to be kind.